Welcome to Paradox Rising Radio Podcast, where the world of dreamscapes and nightmares become your reality.
Welcome to this week's episode of The Fountain Part 1 on Paradox Rising Radio Podcast. Opening his office door, Professor Sawyer notices an envelope at his feet, simply addressed The Fountain, upon returning from his meeting with the Dean about the upcoming year's curriculum. The envelope, large and sturdy in nature, is sealed with a heavy glue, indicating the contents inside may hold some importance. Books and graded papers in hand, Professor Sawyer just looks down at his feet and the envelope, contemplating where this came from and what could be inside this strange arrival. Throwing everything down on his desk hurriedly in anticipation to open it, Sawyer inspects the outside of the package, looking and trying to feel what's inside. Ripping open the top of the envelope, a single page emerges with a small note attached. "Hello, old friend. Another trip down the rabbit hole? For old time's sake? I'll be in touch. Your pal, Max." Removing the small note, what looks like an old page of some sort, seemingly ripped out of an unknown text, reveals itself. At first glance, the page appears to be very old, as Sawyer recognizes right away the style and texture to be made of a linen and hemp mixture, something as a professor of history and archaeology knows to date as far back as the 15th century. Strategically placed on the parchment seem to be symbols of importance, directing the observer to different places on the page through what looks like a grid and topography, accompanied by some kind of cipher under each symbol. Like a piece of ancient artwork, it's a carefully woven tapestry with both beauty and order in its design. Max, an old colleague, former friend and partner, was a constant on Sawyer's archaeological digs and historic finds. Their digs took them on many journeys and adventures around the globe, leading Sawyer down the path of becoming one of the most well-known archaeologists and treasure hunters of the modern era, while Max became known only to black market dealers and the underbelly of stolen antiquity. Not seeing or hearing from Max for over 5 years, all the exciting memories of their expeditions began to surface once again, but with them all the animosity and anger was creeping in about how it all ended, reminding him to be on guard when it came to Max and this new discovery. Suddenly, a knock on the professor's office door pulls Sawyer back. Sawyer, stepping off to the side of the door and the glass of its frame, he carefully peeks through the blinds. After Max's risky career choice, Sawyer almost got used to visits from unruly characters looking for Max. This was no exception, seeing the hired muscle right outside his door.
"Damn it, Max!"
Moving slowly, backing away from the door, Max's page in hand, Sawyer makes his way out the back window to the fire escape. Hurrying down and out onto the street quickly, Sawyer rushes to hail a cab. With Max's antics, Sawyer knows there's probably already a target on his back. Now, with them looking for this page, Sawyer knows he can't go back to his home on the west side of Chicago right now.
"Driver, Somerset Place Apartments. On the double, please."
Right away, sir.
The apartments, under a different pseudonym for the professor because of what lies locked inside, will have to be a refuge for the time being while he gathers supplies and ponders his next move. Approaching the apartment with caution, inspecting around each corner before proceeding, Sawyer finally makes it to his apartment door. Opening each custom lock, he already hears a rustling inside. Sawyer opens the door slowly, envelope opener in hand, as this certainly isn't the first time his courage has been on display. As a veteran of the Great War, Sawyer was ready to strike if needed. Slowly, he walks inside.
Hello, old friend.
Max.
Sawyer, looking ahead at Max, sitting comfortably in a dining room chair with his legs crossed, seemingly without a care in the world. Sawyer begins to feel his anger rise.
Are you trying to get me killed? I thought I told you years ago we were done.
Done? That word is so permanent. I like to think of our situation as an open-ended partnership.
Partnership? You used my connections, stole and blackmailed me. I'd hardly call that a partnership. I'd call that a one-sided criminal affair, you scoundrel. Now I can handle this the way I did in the war, or you can leave now, taking your page and all your problems along with you.
Blackmail? Come on, that was just more of me influencing you to, make the right decision.
Sawyer, walking forward, clenching the envelope opener, remembers all too well the deceit from this man he once called his friend. Stealing from the secret vault in his apartment, the remains of an unknown species and artifacts being studied to be a link proving man was civilized. Capable of complex imagination and emotion long before we thought it to be possible. Artifacts that could have changed human history, sold to black market dealers under the noses of his mobster bosses, never to be seen again. Seeing the rage in Sawyer's eyes, Max gets up, knocking the chair over behind him, putting his hands out apologetically.
I'm sorry, Sawyer. I had to. I had to tell the bosses something. They were on their way to finish me. Telling them that the famous Professor Anson Sawyer had a lead on the artifacts, I thought would at least buy me some time. And with you being so high profile, they would just question you.
They questioned me all right, ransacked my home and office at the college. If they would have discovered my apartment vault, they would have done more than question me. Years of research and the discovery of a lifetime gone in the blink of an eye, all because of your greed. Excuse me if I don't trust a word you say.
Please, Sawyer, just hear me out, just for 5 minutes. I'm here because, like the remains, I truly believe that with this page and the research I've done, that a discovery of a lifetime awaits us. We just need to connect the dots of the past. That's where you come in, my old friend. Please, just let me explain.
First, are we safe here? Have we been followed? Can I trust that my work can still be secure here?
I made sure I wasn't followed and chose to meet you here because I knew this was and will remain a secure location. I'll make sure of it. I'm sorry, Sawyer. I'm so sorry for all of it. That's why I'm coming to you now, to try to redeem my past and give you back the glory and recognition I stole from you. This page stolen from the mythical works of Ponce de Leon is our key, my friend. A key that could help us discover the truth and location behind one of the greatest stories of antiquity.
The fountain. We've suspected there's an actual location for years now, but nothing based on any kind of historical fact.
Exactly. And that's precisely what my findings will help prove. Historical fact and an actual location of a real place. A real place, hidden and lost to time. What do you say? Will you help me and go on one last great adventure?
Let's see this page. I can't imagine we have much time before they come looking for us in the page again. So we'll need to work fast.
Unfolding and laying the page out on his kitchen table, Sawyer and Max begin to look for a direction of text or where the author intended the reader to start. In most ancient hieroglyphs, it is shown that the symbols traditionally face and point in the direction of travel the text is intended to be read. In this case, there seem to be only 4 large symbols, one of each in the corners of the page, with what looks like some strange text under each symbol, unfamiliar at first glance to both of them. As the two try to work fast, Professor Sawyer begins to notice a partial pattern. Repeated images in the texts of the strange symbols. Images that seem to repeat themselves a number of times, indicating a word or lettering system. They repeat, but only after one line and 3 spaces in from the start of the line, as Sawyer notices them from left to right this time.
Question is, who would have created this complicated cipher and what were they trying so hard to protect?
Look, Max.
Translating the repeated symbols and going from left to right, Sawyer starts to uncover the words, writing them down frantically upon a piece of scratch paper, beginning to read the transcribed words from under the symbol in the upper left corner, representing some kind of glowing tree. Max and Sawyer can start to see everything take shape.
Starting upon the ancient oak of the Aveels, there lies the lighted secret that shines bright in 3s. Aveels.
Moving to their right and straight across the page, another symbol resembling a road made of gold, extending and pointing to a single rectangular glowing object, stands out upon the page. Under the symbol, Sawyer again begins to read this cracked cipher aloud.
Moving in one direction of the 3, resting atop the crescent moon, an opening revealed only under the waning shall it be free.
The ancient oak, describing the ancient oak present to Ponce at the time, which, coupled with the Aveels, the street named the oldest street in America, takes us right to the city of St. Augustine. I'd say we have our start, old friend.
Grabbing and shaking each other by the shoulder, Sawyer and Max look at each other with caution and excitement at the same time, for they know that with uncovering great secrets can come great risk to those trying to know the truth that has always been and stayed buried.
With what we have, Max, I think it's time to move. Our friends can't be far behind now. With our method of decipher well in hand, we can continue our work on the other symbols and make our way straight to St. Augustine at once.
And so it begins again. Just like old times, my friend.
Max and Sawyer gather up as much clothing and supplies as they can muster and head quickly for the train station and their transport along the famous Flagler Railroad to their first lead in St. Augustine.
All aboard!
Max and Sawyer climb aboard and start to settle in for their trip. As Max doses off, Sawyer begins pulling out the page and starts studying the symbols that remain. Time passing by quickly, moving closer toward their destination, and with the city far behind them, Sawyer finally begins to let his guard down when he notices 2 men in dark-brimmed hats and trench coats that have walked by their cabin, turned and walked by slowly again, looking in and at the page Sawyer's been researching. Sawyer starts shaking Max.
Max, wake up.
What? What is it?
Max, I think we have company.
Oh no, it's them all right. How did they track us already?
How much do your so-called associates actually know about the page and where it could lead?
Not enough to know where to look, only that the page could be the key to the fountain. But dealing with their underworld for as long as I have, if they've tracked us here, they will not stop until we're taken care of. And they have the page in hand.
Well, luckily I have a plan then to deal with your mess.
With the men out of sight for the moment, Sawyer and Max walk out of their cabin and head in different directions down the train hallway. Max, with the page in hand, heading straight out to the caboose and the outside platform, while Sawyer heads towards the open door of the washroom.
You know what we're here for, Professor. The page, please. Hand it over.
The washroom door closing behind them, the henchman begins drawing his weapon to Sawyer's back as he washes his hands. Forcing his left arm around swiftly while he turns, Sawyer throws his right around at the same time with scalding, soapy water right into the eyes of the thug. With his experience in hand-to-hand combat in the war, Sawyer's instincts take over. Wrestling the gun away, he grabs the thug by his pants and trench coat and forces him quickly across the hallway, slamming him into and out of one of the train side doors. Moving over a bridge of water, Sawyer throws him with all his force off the moving train, watching the man plummet down and into the water. With one man down, Sawyer remembers Max and rushes to the back of the train.
I'm coming, Max!
Max, standing outside on the caboose platform by himself as the professor rushes out, just looks at Sawyer with a sly smile.
You seem to forget, old friend. I made it back from the war too. I can handle one little old thug.
Did he at least get the counterfeit before you sent him packing?
I guess they call them hired muscle for a reason. Using their brains first isn't exactly their forte. After following me out here perfectly and handing over your nicely crafted counterfeit page, which I still have to ask you sometime how you pulled that off so quickly, I found a nice little spot on the back corner of the train that reflected a blinding glare of this beautiful sunny day right into his eyes. A nice swift kick to the chest, and problem number 2 was tumbling away and out of our lives, at least for now.
Well, we have to keep moving quickly. The false locations on the counterfeit will only hold them off for so long. It's only a matter of time before they discover it's a fake.
Arriving in St. Augustine, the humidity and heat hit Sawyer and Max like a wave as they depart the train onto the station platform. With time against them, the two immediately begin asking the locals where they can find what they think is their starting point at the ancient tree. With the location being revealed in due time, the two come upon the ancient tree, standing alone, majestic and strong in all its glory. The old senator, as the locals describe it, stretches its branches like the ancestral fingers of time above the Avils, casting sinister-looking shadows in its wake upon the length of the old street. Walking along the Avils, Sawyer begins to notice a pattern in the shadows of the old tree, a pattern of 3.
Look, Max, look at the shadows.
Shadows?
Of our tree, Max, upon the length of the road.
The sun shining bright in between the shadows in 3s. I see it.
Coming to 3 points on the stone archway entering our street, the road made of gold, represented by the sun shining in between our shadows, leads the way.
Moving in one direction of the 3 and resting upon the crescent moon.
Yes. One of the sunbeams leads us to our discovery in or upon the crescent moon, the archway, but only upon the waning shall it be revealed. The waning?
The waning? The waning crescent phase of the moon?
That's it. But there's only one problem. When is that phase? We're on borrowed time here.
We have to be close. Our new moon, if I remember correctly, was about 13 to 14 days ago, which would stand to show that our phase in question, the last phase before the new moon again, will undoubtedly reveal itself and the precise location of our prize this very evening.
The first reveal is almost upon us then. Let's take to the inn that's close in town and let the moon lead our way tonight.
As Sawyer and Max settle in and convalesce for the afternoon with food and drink, they begin examining the page again. The third symbol in the lower left corner, representing a glistening reflection from a lake of what looks like a stone castle surrounded by forest. Having already cracked the code of the previous ciphers, Sawyer begins to make quick work of this new clue. Looking down at the page, Sawyer begins reading aloud.
The house of the lady in the lake shows us the way, with the key of the crescent moon opening the underworld to those that pray.
Distracted by the page, the two look up and out the window to notice the daylight fading already.
Looks like that time may be upon us, my friend.
With darkness creeping in, the two start out again towards Avil Street with a clear star-filled sky and bright moon lighting the way. Approaching the street entrance archway again, reflections of the moonlight shine and bounce off the brass mounting fixtures at the bottom of each end of the archway. They look to see that the reflective light actually leads to a singular point in the center of the archway. Sawyer and Max look back at each other with excitement.
I think we found it, Max.
I see it, Sawyer. Now I believe we're finally getting somewhere, sir.
Please stay tuned next week for part 2 and the conclusion of The Fountain on Paradox Rising Radio Podcast.